People love to give backpacking advice. Some of it's gold, some of it's straight up trash. Here are the worst tips I ever followed and what I do instead. First up, bigger backpacks are better. This is some of the worst advice you can get as a beginner. The logic goes like this. A bigger pack gives you more room for gear, which means you can bring everything you might need. But here's the reality. Extra space means extra temptation to overpack. And once you start stuffing in all those just-in-case items, that nice, roomy pack turns into a full-blown torture device strapped to your back. My first pack, a Gregory Baltoro 70. 70 liters of bad decisions. And the kicker, it weighs 6 pounds by itself. 6 pounds before I put a single thing in it. Naturally, I stuffed that beast with every just-in-case item imaginable. Extra clothes, packed. Full-size Dr. Bronner's, obviously. A second stove, in case the first one spontaneously combusted. Sure, why not? 5 miles in, I wasn't feeling prepared. I was feeling like a pack mule on a death march. Here's the truth. When you have extra space, you will fill it. It's like an unspoken rule of backpacking. You start rationalizing things. Oh, it's just a few more ounces. This might come in handy. I'll appreciate the luxury. But before you know it, you're lugging around a ridiculous amount of weight that makes every mile feel like a marathon. The better move, stick to a smaller pack, 45 to 55 liters max. This will force you to carry only what's necessary and keeps your load manageable. Something like the Hyperlight Mountain Gear 2400 Southwest or the Osprey Exos 48 keeps your load light without sacrificing comfort. A well-balanced 45-liter pack feels like freedom compared to a bloated 70-liter monster. So another brutal piece of advice I got, you don't need trekking poles. The idea here is that trekking poles are for old people or that they just get in the way. Yeah, no. Trekking poles are knee savers, period. I learned this the hard way at Henry Coe State Park, one of the steepest, most punishing hiking areas in Northern California. 10 miles in, my knees were wrecked. Every downhill step started feeling like tiny knives stabbing in my knees. It was brutal. And by the time I hit the final descent, I was straight up limping. I was slipping more, stumbling more, and by the end, I was hobbling back to my car like a 90-year-old. After that, I picked up a pair of the Black Diamond Trail Ergo Cork trekking poles, and it was the best thing I could have done. Instantly, I could feel the difference, less stress on my joints, better balance, and way more control on steep sections. And poles aren't just for your knees either. They help with stability on rocky terrain, keep you from face planting into the mud, and can even double as tent poles for some ultralight shelters. I've used mine to cross sketchy river sections, fend off an aggressive marmot, true story, and keep myself propped up and on balance after one too many miles. So if you think trekking poles look dorky, trust me, knee pain looks dorkier. All right, guys, let's talk about tents. I once fell for the advice that double wall tents are a waste of money. The logic, single wall tents are lighter, simpler, and don't have an extra rain fly to fuss with. It sounds great until you wake up drenched from condensation. My first night in a single wall tent felt like sleeping inside a rain cloud. Every time I shifted, water dripped from the walls, my head would bump the edge, and my beanie would get wet. I'd wake up in the morning and the footbox of my quilt was soaking from rubbing against the back wall. And it wasn't just that one time. I do have a single wall tent, and sometimes I'll take it out, but I almost always end up with something wet in the morning. And if you're going out on a trip with sub-freezing temperatures, the last thing you want to do, trust me, is wake up at 3 a.m. and find the entire footbox of your sleeping bag not only soaked, but now freezing into solid ice. Now, single wall tents can save weight, but at what cost? Double wall tents might be a few ounces heavier, but they actually breathe, meaning less condensation, fewer soggy mornings, and way better sleep. Plus, with a removable rain fly, you have more versatility. Hot nights? Go without the fly and enjoy a bug-proof shelter. Bad weather? Keep it on, stay dry. If you value staying dry, sleeping well, and not waking up in a personal swamp, go with a double wall tent like the Big Agnes Copper Spur or the Nemo Dagger. Breathable, lightweight, and no condensation nightmares. Next, let's talk about the classic bring a heavy stainless steel water bottle so that you can always boil water. This is the survivalist fantasy that refuses to die. Sure, boiling water is one way to purify it, but unless you're in a full-on survival movie, this is wildly impractical. Filtering water is easier, faster, and doesn't leave your gear covered in soot. First off, stainless steel water bottles are ridiculously heavy. I've carried this thing before. It feels like lugging a dumbbell. But the worst part, actually trying to use it to boil water in a campfire. First, I had to build a serious fire, one hot enough to actually boil water. Then I had to balance the bottle just right in the flames without knocking it over. Within minutes, my hands were covered in thick, sticky soot. I pulled it out, got ash all over my hands, my clothes, my pack. My fingers looked like they had just done an oil change on a car. And after all that, the water tasted like straight up campfire. Meanwhile, my friend had already filtered his water and was sipping it comfortably. He was lying in his hammock, chilling, while I was out here playing survivalist. That's when it clicked. I was making things harder for no reason. The better move, ditch the steel. Just get a Sawyer squeeze and a smart water bottle. Lighter, faster, no headaches. All right, let's switch things up and kill this ridiculous idea that you shouldn't watch movies in the backcountry. Some people act like watching a downloaded movie or listening to a podcast at camp is some kind of backpacking sin. You're supposed to just unplug and connect with nature. Look, I love nature. I also love not staring at the dark woods in silence after hiking 20 miles. Tried that? It's not serene. It's boring. Or worse, creepy. For me, there's nothing better than kicking back in my tent after a long day and watching some mindless movies while I eat my trail dinner. I download Netflix movies before every trip. Action movies, comedy, Japanese anime, even some SpongeBob SquarePants. No shame. And if you're worried about battery life, just bring a power charger. I bring this Anker PowerCore 20,000 and it keeps my phone charged for several days. And hey, if I want to keep the backcountry survival vibes, I'll just watch something like The Revenant. But other nights, I'm cracking up at Dumb and Dumber while stuffing my face with instant mashed potatoes. And let's be real, if it's raining and you're stuck in your tent for hours, you'll be so glad you brought something to watch. So if a little Netflix at camp makes your trip better, do it. The mountains don't care. And if they do, too bad. At the end of the day, backpacking is supposed to be fun. It's not about following a rule book written by hardcore survivalists or minimalist purists. It all comes down to finding what works for you. If carrying that big old pack lets you bring out more luxury items and you like that, do it. If trekking poles save your knees, use them. If watching SpongeBob in your tent helps you unwind, who cares? The backcountry isn't some exclusive club where you have to prove how hardcore you are. So if you've ever fallen for bad trail advice, drop it in the comments. I want to hear about the worst tips you've ever gotten. Also, if you found this video helpful, hit that subscribe button. I got more trail tested advice coming, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there.